but I like keeping it casual, you know?
That's my style.
Okay, whoops. Get comfortable here. Okay, so it looks like we're going. Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Super Cinema Bros with me, Disregarding Henry, and...
Super Celluloid Bros, you jackass.
Ah, you're right. I'm sorry.
It's episode 2. You got it wrong already. I'm Bretflix.
Super Celluloid Bros. Okay, I'm sorry. You introduce yourself.
I'm Bretflix Mazursky. What up, Henry? How you doing?
Pretty good. What about you, Bretflix?
Pretty good. I'm actually coming to you from the Black Lodge, if you didn't notice. I mean, there's a little Twin Peaks reference for you.
Yeah. So you got the black and white zigzags on the floor and everything?
Yeah, I'd show you, but it'd mess up my camera angle. But totally, yeah, I do. And, I have a super old Cooper sitting next to me, and everything's in reverse, so I don't know what the hell's going on, but it's a good time.
Tree with a wad of bubble gum on top.
Yep. Yeah, what have you been up to this past week?
Well, I tried to see some movies. I saw some movies, and I tried to see some movies.
Did you failed at seeing some of them, or?
I did. I failed at one. I said last week that I was going to try and see Wes Anderson's Isle of Dogs in theaters. It's still playing at one theater around here in Portland. So I went out and tried to see that twice. I was just in downtown hanging out with a friend on Thursday, and I was like, hey, Isle of Dogs at 8:45. What do you say? Let's go see it. And he was kind of like, I don't know. So I was just going to go see it by myself. But then some other friends showed up, and kind of like last minute, I was like, I could see it tomorrow. Like, let's just hang out tonight, just chill out. So I wound up doing that. The next day, it's like, okay, tonight I'll go see Isle of Dogs, under the assumption, because it was Friday, it was just one day later in the week, I assumed that all of the show times would be the same. So I showed up at 8:45 the next night, only to discover that the show times had been changed and there was no 8:45 show time that night. So 2 nights in a row, I missed Isle of Dogs. Didn't get to see it.
Yeah, that's happened to me before. I hate that so much.
Oh, man, really?
Yeah.
It is a bummer.
I know, it really is. Like, especially when you, you saw 8:45 p.m., I'm assuming, and so, you spend your whole day like, oh, I can't wait to go see this movie later, and then you're not able to.
Yeah, then I show up, and it's like, what? Hold on, where'd it go?
Yeah. What I love, one thing I've noticed that the theater in our hometown has done a million times is it'll like a bunch of show times for like throughout the week, but then I'm assuming because the movie doesn't play well, they like stop showing it throughout the week.
Oh, have they done that?
Yeah. I don't remember what movies like they were, but I remember I'm like, oh, cool, I want to see this movie. I'm not free until whatever day of next week, but it's playing that day, great. But when the day comes, it's not there anymore. I'm like, what the hell? Like, that sucks. I mean, I get if the movie's not bringing in any money or whatever, but like, don't say you're gonna play it unless you can commit to it.
Oh, really? Like they list showtimes, but then
like the day it's happened, like it hasn't been there, and they're usually for like the smaller movies that no one really cares. Like, they're probably just movies that they have in there just to fill a theater because there's nothing else to put in there. But that's happened to me before there. Yeah. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
What about you? Did you have better luck than me over the last week?
Yeah,
trying to see things?
I did get a little lucky. The only time I was able to get out of the house was last week I said I wanted to see Hereditary, and I did see Hereditary. Yeah. And I almost didn't, though. I almost missed it. The last theater that was playing it was the one at Gateway Mall here in Eugene. And when I remembered, I was like, oh shit, I should go out and go see Hereditary. There was only one showing of it left that day, and it was at 11 o'clock at night too.
Oh man,
but I'm up that time anyway. Yeah, and it was a perfect midnight movie, so I was able to go see that, and that was pretty much I saw that, and I saw another movie on Netflix that was kind of interesting. But other than that, it was movie-wise, it was a pretty uneventful week. I only was able to see a couple movies throughout the past 5 or 6 days.
Yeah, me too. I've only got a couple. I did watch some stuff, so I've got a few I can talk about.
Okay.
But
what was notable that you saw?
Well, there was one that I actually saw a couple weeks ago that I've just neglected to talk about over the last few like streams that I've done, but it was one I was really blown away by and that I definitely want to mention and give a shout out to and just talk a little bit about how much I admired it and just try to let people know about it and tell people to check this movie out and to see it because I was so impressed by it and I thought it was such an incredible film. But the movie's called Christine. Have you ever heard of this film?
Christine?
Not the John Carpenter Christine.
I assumed as much because you're like, have you ever heard of Christine? It's like, of course I fucking heard of that. But, so I assumed it was a different Christine.
Yes,
so no,
different
I have
Christine.
not. I have not heard of it. No.
Okay, it's from like I want to say 2016, 2017 thereabouts. The last couple years. Mm-hmm. It's a fairly recent movie, but yeah, it is called Christine. I watched it on Netflix. This was a movie that I'd heard of. I can't remember where I first heard of it. A little while ago, but I'd heard it was like a dark, intense, and depressing movie. Like I'd heard a couple people talk about it and say that it was a really tough one to watch because it was so dark and hard-edged. And it's a movie based on true events. It tells the story of a woman named Christine. I forget her last name, but she was like a local news anchor, and she became rather infamous in the late. I want to say late 70s, or maybe it was earlier. I can't remember the exact time frame, but it's around the 70s. I want to say. So it's a period piece, but this was a woman who was a local news anchor who actually she was going through like this private depression and all of these mental issues and loneliness and isolation and all of these, you know, difficulties that drove her to decide to take her own life. And the way she did it is she actually shot herself in the head on live TV.
Wow.
Yeah, this is, I believe, the only suicide that has ever taken place on live TV. And yeah, it's become sort of a notorious story. And this movie is sort of a dramatization of the events leading up to that, like her decision to do that. The actress, I think her name is Rebecca Hall.
I know Rebecca Hall. I love Rebecca Hall.
Yeah, she's the one from like The Gift, right? And was she in Vicky Cristina Barcelona?
Yeah, she was in that, and she was in The Town, I think. And
it's been so long since I've seen The Town. I don't remember that one.
Yeah. Well, she's definitely in Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Okay, yeah. She plays the main role, and she is really incredible. I can understand where people are coming from when they say that, because I've read some of the reviews online. I went on like Letterboxd to just kind of check out what some of the reaction was. And there seemed to be kind of two feelings on it. There are people that admire it, but still just like there are people that flat out hate it, that just think it's a pointless, despairing, depressing movie. And then there are people that admire it, but still don't quite see what the point of such a sad film is, you know, because it really is probably one of the most bleak films I've ever seen. Diving in, the way it dives into her life and her mindset, because obviously, you know, you have to be a person that is going through some pretty awful things, you know, inside of yourself to be driven to do something like what this woman did. And the movie really tries to dive into that as honestly and as fearlessly as it can. And it really is an emotionally draining experience, but it's incredibly well written. It really has a lot of insight, you know, just into obviously it's a fictionalization, so I can't say how accurate it was, but just for the way it examined its themes and the kind of issues that it deals with, it felt to me like one of the most accurate and one of the most honest portrayals of, you know, just obsessiveness and compulsion and perfectionism, but also self-loathing. You know, she's a woman that is driven, you know, to try and create these news programs and to do real reporting, but she holds herself to such rigorous standards and everything she does isn't good enough. and she hates herself, and she feels worthless, and she feels unattractive, and she's incredibly lonely, desperate to connect, but doesn't know how to connect. The way it delves into all of those things in the writing and in the direction, it's brilliantly directed, brilliantly photographed, and really brilliantly acted. All of the performances, I think, are some of the best work these actors have ever delivered. There's, I think the guy's name is Michael C. Hall. He was in the show Dexter.
Okay. I haven't seen the show, but I think I can picture the face.
Yeah, he plays like one of her co-anchors. He's really good playing like this kind of doofy like ex-football player who, you know, kind of gets a news anchor job just because he's handsome and charismatic, but you know, doesn't really have a lot of dedication to his job. Or
he's like William Hurt in broadcast news.
Yeah, a little bit. I think a little more grounded though, a little more realistic. Okay. And Tracy Letts plays the great playwright Tracy Letts. Also has a really great acting performance as Christine's boss at the news station. As, you know, just this guy that's driving himself crazy with the stress of running a news station. But it's an incredible portrait, you know, of depression and just the suffering, you know, that people put themselves through when they don't know how to go easy on themselves, when they don't know how to forgive themselves, and when they don't know how to reach out for help, you know. And I say that from personal experience. I went through some years of depression myself, and I know that feeling all too well, you know, of just feeling just as bad as you could possibly feel and not knowing how to say to anyone, I feel awful. Can somebody please help me? And I don't know what it is, you know, just stubbornness or fear, or maybe a combination of that and more that just keeps us, you know, from just trying to reach out to one another. But this is, I think, one of the most brutal but hypnotic and incredible looks at that kind of suffering and that kind of person that I've ever seen. I related to it on a very deep level, and I was really profoundly moved by it. And this is a movie that is not an easy watch, obviously, but it's one I can't recommend highly enough to anybody out there. Obviously, yeah, just by the sounds of it, because, again, we know how it ends because it's based on a true story. So it has a very harsh ending that, you know, is kind of inevitable, and it's really not easy to watch, but so incredibly well executed, so just, you know, incredibly moving. You grow to care for this character and relate to her, you know, or at least I did so deeply. And it's incredibly tragic, you know, the way it traces just her life and the tragic turn that it took. But I was really moved by it. I thought it was a masterpiece, one of the best movies I've seen in the last couple of years, and I really think people should check it out.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be kind of an intense ride. Like it makes you understand fully this character's depression.
Yeah,
that might be a kind of ride not a lot of people want to go on.
Yes, especially knowing that the character doesn't find a way out of it, that she kind of succumbs to her own despair.
Yeah, when you see movies and you don't really know the outcome, you can kind of hope that things work out in the end. And so when you see people going down a bad road and you know the way it ends, it kind of makes it all the more despairing because there is no hope for that ending.
But I feel like it's a movie that is still valuable because it offers insight. You know, I feel like it really offers some genuine insight and empathy into the kind of suffering that people do go through. And I think just seeing that and kind of putting it into a certain kind of perspective will hopefully, you know, make it so that somebody will say like, oh my God, I need to reach out for help. You know, that is because I feel like when people do these incredibly destructive things to themselves, like taking their own lives, it is kind of like the only way they know to cry for help. I feel like that's kind of my interpretation of this character, you know, why she decided to take her life publicly on live TV. It was kind of like the only way she knew to declare to the world, like, I feel horrible, I need help. But she did it in such a final sort of way. There was no turning back from it. But, and it's just kind of weird, you know, that just that simple little need for communication of just simply saying like, I need help. You know, I can't handle what I'm dealing with on my own. It's odd that that simple little thing is something that can be so difficult for so many of us, you know?
Yeah,
First,
it's hard for me, because I've dealt with depression before too, and like I just felt like almost too proud to admit that kind of stuff.
yeah, I think
And
pride is definitely part of it. Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and every time, like, I know when I hear about other people's depression, it's very easy for me to kind of trivialize it and be like, what the hell do you have to be depressed about? Like, everything's fine. You're just kind of being a baby. And it's just always more complex than that. There's a lot more
Yeah.
depth to it than that, because yeah, on the surface, like, oh, just because a person, say, has money or whatever, like, they, that doesn't mean they can't be upset about things. They don't have problems.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it is, it's just so easy to kind of like just think everyone's being a baby. And so empathy is an important thing. And
Yes. Yes.
that's a great thing about us being human, is we can empathize with even things that are not human, animals and stuff, like everything.
Yeah.
And I'm always afraid that, like, people are going to see my issues in the same way, like in the same just sort of surface way, like, you'll get over it, just shut up, don't whine about it.
Oh yeah, it's also kind of a little bit of vulnerability too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. That can be a really horrible thing of like putting your feelings out there, saying I'm feeling this and I'm upset over these things, and then having somebody just crush them right in front of you. Like, well, you're stupid for feeling that way. It's like,
yeah, or it's like, oh, well, you're not, it's like you're not starving in some other part of the world or whatever, like, you know what I mean? It's like, well, that doesn't mean I'm fucking happy, like, I have problems. Like, listen to me, hear me.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, is sometimes, we lack perspective on ourselves, even though we have so much to be grateful for. It's still, just for some of us out there, it still seems to be so easy to just feel horrible all the time. And that can exist for a variety of reasons. But definitely, I think I can say definitely from personal experience, just trying to keep that all inside and not express it in any way, just trying to hold it all down. I could say that's probably the worst thing you can do with stuff like that. And, you really do need to, I think it's stuff that's gonna find its way out anyway, whether it's through, acting out or self-harm or even, suicide, taking one's own life. That stuff needs to release some way. And I think it's always best to try and release it in the least destructive way possible. And from my perspective, one of the least destructive ways is to just say to somebody like, hey, I feel like shit today.
Can you... Yeah. And there are plenty of ways to do that in very healthy manners. And you don't think of it that way because it's going to make you vulnerable, or like you're afraid that people are going to see you as something else than like what you want them to, for me, I know one of the reasons why I struggled like reaching out to people in the past is because I'm known as being a happy-go-lucky dude. And I like being seen that way. I like that people can be comfortable around me, and I want to maintain that. So if I'm going to go out and, tell people like, I'm depressed about this or whatever, I'm afraid that that's going to kind of shatter that image of me. And I guess it's not as big of a deal for people to know me better, but again, like, I still want them to feel like, oh, if I need to just kind of let loose or have fun or get a laugh, I can still turn to this guy, to me, and because it's like that amongst my family. Like I'm the cool uncle, or I'm the chill little brother to all my sisters and stuff, and I feel like I'm the guy that can always be around to make the mood much lighter, and I don't want to not be that. So if I were to expose myself a bit more emotionally, that is, then I'm just afraid that they wouldn't see me that way anymore, and I still want to be that guy to everybody that they need me to be.
Yeah, I think I kind of experienced something similar to that, because I try to be pretty open, just with my own experiences with depression, when I do stuff on the channel. But I think, the year or so that I did it, I was really conscious of that. Like, I want to present an image of myself as just being this.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really me, you know, especially on the days when I didn't actually feel like that. I didn't want to present myself in a certain way where I'm like, I'm the goofy YouTube guy. And it gets harder and harder the worse and worse you feel. And it feels more and more dishonest, which made me feel worse and worse. But now I just try to be like, I just want to be me. And I think there's still a certain amount of like, you know, when I turn the stream on, I got to be like, okay, time to get talky, you know, time to get in a certain time to get in a certain mindset. But at the same time, kind of like, you know, I don't want to be a dishonest version of myself. You know, I want to talk about the things I actually feel, the things I actually think. But I also want to consciously try to be a little entertaining at the same time, but not, you know, dishonest or false.
Yeah, that's the same way I am. Like, before I do like a Bretflix video, I'll often just watch random videos by YouTubers I really like, and I'm like I like their personality, and I want to try to adopt a lot of that into my videos. So I'll like try to like get myself hyped up, like, all right, Brett, you got to be charismatic, you got to be fun and stuff. And I mean, I guess I equate that sort of thing as to just like getting into character.
Yeah.
But so you have to find that good balance. Like, I'm still being me, yet I'm still kind of hyping myself up to do a video. Not being dishonest and everything.
Yeah, it can be a little tricky to find that balance sometimes.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
Yeah, but I want to be unafraid, you know, to be myself and to say like, yeah, this day I'm not feeling so good, or last week, yeah, I was definitely going through some depression. Because I feel like just the more you can talk about it, the less terrifying or threatening a thing it will seem. And I also hope, you know, it can help other people to say like, oh, I don't have to just keep all this inside. I can just talk about it and try to get better. Yeah,
just to, I don't want to say normalize it. I don't think that's the right word, but just know it's not something to be ashamed of. You know?
Yeah, I think normalize is the right word, because it's something that so many people go through. It really isn't.
I think it's something everyone goes through. You see people on social media that will post about how happy they are, and I have to wonder, like, how long does that high last? You know?
Yeah, like, nobody's happy all the time.
Yeah, and in fact, not to be bleak, but in fact, I think at best, most of the time you're just kind of okay. You know, like you're just kind of at that middle point. You're not sad. You're not like excited and happy. You're just kind of like, whatever. You know, I'm just fine. And you have to try to do your best to go above that as often as you can, but that high lasts just so temporarily. And it's a thought that kind of depresses me. But if I'm going to be honest, like, I'm not happy a lot of the time, but I'm also not sad a lot of the time either. I'm just kind of existing, just doing my thing, like whether it's a chores around the house or I'm at work, I'm kind of on autopilot sometimes or a lot of time.
Well, that's why you get out and live, isn't it? That's why you go out and talk with friends. You go here, you do this, you watch a great movie. You know, those are the things that lift us up. You know, it's that when we gain a piece of insight, you know, from watching a great movie or experience, you know, a journey of empathy, you know, with a story, or just when we meet an old friend we haven't seen in a long time and say like, oh, hey, what have you been up to? You know, when we interact or see our family or loved ones or whatever, you know, it's when we live life that we feel happy. And then, you know, during the other times, it's just like, okay, you know, got to get my shit done now.
yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah, I wish life could be, just nothing but great all the time. But I mean, the fact is, it isn't. Life is tough a lot of the time, but you get through it and you find the next little bit of happiness.
Right.
I guess that's what hope is, you know?
Oh, for sure. But hey, you know, life's not that bad, I guess. So
I agree. Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as it's often made out to be. I used to think that, but look what it got me. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's just because it's not the way we think it's supposed to be. Because we have this idea of happiness and when you think of being happy, you think of being like, you have that high I keep mentioning all the time, just like consistently, and it's gonna last for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I heard it described as somebody once said, I forget where, but they're saying like a lot of people seem to have this image of happiness in their head that it's like a finish line, that once you cross it, then it's like, oh, okay, now I'm happy forever. And it doesn't work that way.
But it's finish line after finish line. So like you cross a finish line and you're like, oh, I feel so good. But then you got to like do it again, and to feel good again, you got to keep at it. You got to keep moving forward. And they think it's going to be like a movie, where you meet the love of your life and then you live happily ever after, and that's just kind of the end of the story. But when you meet the love of your life, that's just the end of like that story, and then there's a million other stories after that you have to try to get positive outcomes out of.
Yeah, I guess happiness is something that really does have to be earned. Like you have to work at it. It's I think a lot of us do feel entitled to happiness all of the time, right now, instantly. But you do have to work at it, and that's part of why we feel happy, because we accomplished something.
Yeah, you had the guts to go out and accomplish something, because you could have failed. I mean,
failure doesn't have to be the end either. Yeah, I think a lot of people look at failure as like this apocalyptic thing. I did for the longest time, but it really isn't. And I guess that's another hang up you kind of have to get over. And I think that relates to the movie we were discussing too, where it's like it's somebody so afraid to fail that it kind of like it cripples her own ability to be happy. And that's something I can relate to all too well, of trying to work on this or that and just like, but it's not perfect, and being so afraid that it won't live up to what I want it to be that I just give up, over and over again. I was just
gonna say, like, or just so afraid to fail that you don't even try in the first place. Like, you can't even face like the possibility that things aren't going to work out.
But that is where you learn, when you fail, and then you just got to realize like, well, I can try again. I'm still here. I'm still alive, and I can go out and I can try and I can fail again and learn a little bit more.
Like I think about that in terms of like wanting to make movies, because getting to that point where you can make a single movie, let alone like have a career in it, it's just such a long road. And to start that journey and then to fail it doesn't mean like you failed. It just means, or like you've lost the war, you've just lost that one battle, but you keep fucking going. It can be so haunting. Just the weight of that can be. So sometimes it's like, oh, should I do something productive, or should I just kind of like cower it away and not do anything at all because I'm just nervous that it's not going to work out.
Yeah, I still struggle with that. I'm trying to put together a short film right now, and it's terrifying because I'm so afraid that I'm going to mess it up, that I'm going to, not do something correctly or the way I want to do it. But, you just got to push through it, and you got to try to make it happen, come what may. And if I fail, then I fail, and then I just got to move on to the next one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there can always be a next one. You got to just remember that at all times. I know I do, at least. I got to remember that at all times.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so Christine, everyone, check it out on Netflix. It's definitely worth a watch.
I had forgotten we were even talking about a movie.
Well, that's okay, as long as we're having interesting discussions.
Yeah, for sure. I actually watched a movie. This isn't really related to Christine at all, but...
that's fine.
Yeah, I watched this movie, I think it was 2 nights ago, and it was one of those, like, I'd never heard of it, and I was just kind of diving into the unknown, just picking a movie at random just to see what it was. Because my sister, who lives down where we're from, came up to visit for the weekend, and we're staying up late one night, and we're like, hey, let's put on like a really crappy slasher movie. So we're going through Netflix, and we're looking through the horror stuff, and we come across this movie called Backcountry. Have you heard of it? Or because I'd never heard of it. You
said it was called Bat Country?
Backcountry.
Oh, Backcountry. Okay.
Yeah. It's about like this couple that go on this hiking trip, and the description made the movie seem like something it wasn't at all. The description was like, oh, this couple goes hiking and then they're attacked by a bear, and the whole movie is them like running away from this bear. So I thought it was going to be some like rabid bear or something, chasing them down.
Yeah, like some kind of creature feature.
Yeah, but it really wasn't like that at all. It was actually, it was, they go out. It turns out like they get lost, and they don't know where they are. They're running low on resources. They're getting really scared. And then like a bear does show up at some point, but that really wasn't what the whole movie was about. That was mostly just like a major turning point in the story. I'll say I don't want to spoil too much, but it was actually kind of worth checking out, because most of the struggles that they have in the movie is like, we're lost, we're running out of water and food. One of the characters like breaks their ankle, so they have to figure out how they're going to try to like get out of the forest with this broken ankle. I should say that like the bear does kind of follow them, but it's only it's only a couple moments throughout the whole movie where they actually have to confront the thing. Most of the movie is them just being alone and afraid and trying to survive from things other than this bear. And
so it's kind of like a grounded like survivalist tale.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely not great. Like it's a really short movie. There is a little camp to it, but it was one of those where like I was expecting really cheesy slasher horror, and I got a pretty competent like survival story, I walked away kind of going like, that wasn't that bad. Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah. Do you know what year it was?
I want to say it was like 2014, maybe 2015. Okay. It's relatively new. But yeah, it makes me think I should dive into the unknown of Netflix more often.
Yeah.
Most of the movies I watch are ones like I've heard of or know something about.
Yeah.
Or like have been like anticipating for a while. So I don't really go into those movies like just the ones that no one's ever fucking watched. I'm probably the only person who's ever seen this thing on Netflix. And I was pleasantly surprised. It had really great makeup effects, because there are some like there's one really gory scene, and I was pretty impressed by how well done it was. Like I even like wanted to turn away several times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So even if I went in with like mediocre expectations, I still would have been impressed with the movie. So it's one I think it's worth checking out. Maybe the viewers, you should check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. So another Netflix recommendation. Backcountry on Netflix.
Backcountry. Okay. One word, Backcountry.
Okay, Backcountry. Yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind. Put it on my list. It's not a queue anymore; it's a list.
I still call it a queue, and I don't know why they changed it.
I like queue. Yeah,
they're the same thing, but queues are way better than lists.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep calling it a queue.
I'm good with that. I'll do the same.
But I'll definitely make a note of that one. Backcountry. Okay,
yep, for sure. But other than that, the only other movie I saw in the past week was Hereditary.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that one next, or I have one more I can talk about?
Throw one in. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do one more for me, then one more for you, and then we'll probably end the episode.
Okay.
But the one other movie I saw this week, I started one. I think we'll end up talking about it next week. I'm sure we can talk about that at the end of the episode, like what we can do for next week. Mm-hmm. But the other movie I watched this one on Hulu. Hulu just recently kind of put a bunch of Stephen King movies on their streaming service. Nice. Yeah. And I saw that recently added was The Green Mile, the film adaptation of Green Mile, which is a movie that, I've known about for the longest time. I knew it had gotten some really good reviews. It's Frank Darabont, who I'm a big fan of. He obviously did The Shawshank Redemption, which is a great Stephen King adaptation and just a great film, period. But I'd actually never seen The Green Mile. I'd seen bits and pieces.
I'm kind of surprised. Because that's one like Forrest Gump. Like everyone's just seen that movie.
It's Tom Hanks, so like of course. Yeah. But yeah, it was one that I'd seen like maybe bits and pieces of here and there on TV, maybe over the years. But I'd never actually sat down and watched the whole thing. So I saw it was on Hulu, and just kind of on an impulse, I was just like, let's just watch this. Why not? I was a little bit intimidated by, the 3-hour plus runtime, but I was kind of like, I'll start it and see how I feel about it. And I wound up watching the whole movie start to finish in just a single sitting, which I was not expecting. It was a great movie.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I thought it was just one of those movies that, everyone saw and was like, oh yeah, that's a good movie. But watching it for myself, like, I gotta say, I was a little surprised. I don't know why, but just because, the quality of the talent involved, but still, I was actually surprised just how great of a film it was. It really is an amazing movie. It's incredibly. I read the book when I was in high school, and I thought the book was great. And this is the thing I got to say about Stephen King. Like, he's so popular and so successful. I've said this a couple times over the past few streams, but he's one of those ones that's kind of like Steven Spielberg. They're so successful and so iconic, and they've permeated popular culture in such a profound way that I think people tend to forget just what brilliant artists they are. Like Steven Spielberg, like, yes, he's successful. Yes, he's like the most successful director of all time, but he's just a great filmmaker. He's successful because he's a great filmmaker and a great artist. And Stephen King's the same way. Like, yes, he's probably the most popular, successful writer of all time, but he's also just a great writer. He's successful for a reason.
Yeah. I think it's easy to hear the name Stephen King and be like, oh, he's that guy who writes those gross out horror things, really cheesy,
a little
really cheesy stuff. Like, it's fun, but you're not really going to think of it as art. And I think your comparison to Spielberg is really fitting too, because people think of Indiana Jones even and think like, oh, that's just a fun action movie, but like, it's
just fluff.
Brilliantly well made. Like, like, you can't find a more well crafted action movie than Indiana Jones. Like, it is a piece of art. Like, it's not just a blockbuster. Yeah,
and it's a film that comes from a specific individual. Spielberg really put his personality into that, his obsessions into that. It's a movie that comes from a specific individual, and I feel like King's work is the same way. He really tries to write about the things that obsess him, and from a particular point of view. And Darabont obviously has kind of made a career out of adapting Stephen King work. He's done several. He's done Shawshank, Green Mile, and The Mist. And Green Mile, I think, was the only one that I hadn't seen. And I'm really glad I watched it, because I remember really loving the book when I read it in high school. And it's one that, like a lot of Stephen King stuff, I was sort of obsessed with his work in high school. I read pretty much everything that was in my high school library that had King's name on it. And it all stuck with me, even to this day. Like, there are some books I read last month that I remember less about them than I do about Stephen King books I read, a decade ago. So that really says something for what a great writer he is. And the movie, from my memory, sticks pretty close to the book, and it's incredibly well done. It really is. It's 3 hours long, but I mean, it has a 3-hour story to tell. It takes its time. It really establishes its characters, and it's got some great characters. It really lets you know the setting, know the world. It really lets you as a viewer get to feel like you live in this world, like you're actually there with all these characters, experiencing things as they unfold. And it takes some really wild turns. It's a movie set on death row in, I want to say, like the 40s. Does that sound right?
Yeah, 40s, 50s, yeah.
Yeah, mid 20th century in the United States and the South. And it has a supernatural sort of twist to it, done, in King's typical way, where he tries to really ground it in reality and then bring in something fantastic, but really tries to make you believe, that this incredible, fantastic supernatural thing is actually happening in the real world. And the movie does a great job of capturing that as well, making you believe in the reality of just the film itself and the setting, and then introducing this fantastic element and how it affects people. And it's a very moving story with some great performances. Tom Hanks, Michael Clark Duncan, Sam Rockwell, Michael Jeter, a great ensemble cast. And just an incredibly well-made movie. Really masterfully directed by Frank Darabont.
Isn't there also a brief appearance from Harry Dean Stanton?
There is, yes, just in a couple scenes.
If
Yeah,
that doesn't sell it for you, then that's what. Yeah, and what a great what a great performance from Michael Clark Duncan, but also just what a great character in general, because you have this guy who's a beast. He's so tall and so huge.
Yeah,
like
they really do. Yeah,
when you
an
look
effective
at him,
job you have conveying that. Yeah,
like he looks like a Stephen King villain almost, like something that would be this murderous thing. But then you start to talk to him, and he is the most gentle human being who's ever lived. And so there's just that twist. Like I remember, like the way they introduce him in the movie, he steps off the truck. You don't see him yet, but you just see the truck like lift off the ground from how heavy this dude is.
And he's ducking under doorways. Yeah,
he's so intimidating and everything. But then, like, doesn't the first thing he do is like lay down in his bed and cry? I know he at least lays in his bed. Maybe I'm adding the crying part, but you're just like, this thing is supposedly murdered 2 young girls, and like,
and he's saying like he's afraid of the dark. And
he even has superpowers. Like there's the supernatural element that's in a lot of King's work, where I guess he maybe could use it for evil somehow, where he could like suck the diseases and probably even the life out of people if he chose to, but he doesn't want to use it for that. So there are all these like elements that sound very stereotypically Stephen King, but he uses it all for a very emotional and human story that you really don't expect coming from someone like Stephen King, because he normally writes things like It or or The Shining, and so then you get this work from him, and it just kind of it hits you out of left field, I think, and it's very all effective. It's all like as it should be. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a movie that watching it, I kind of felt like it was almost like a last hurrah, like for the new Hollywood almost. You know, it was a movie that, you know, didn't build itself around big action set pieces. It was about people and characters and just telling a story as well as it could be told in the time it chooses to tell that story. You know, it almost kind of reminded me of The Godfather, you know, a film just built around characters and performances and just telling this very long, epic in scope sort of story over this very long 3-hour period of time. And The Green Mile felt very similar to me. It takes its time to tell the story, you know, the best way it can. And it pays off. Like, it is in the closing passages, it's so incredibly moving. And I really don't feel you'd have that, you know, if the movie were any shorter or any different. Like, I feel like Darabont really knocked it out of the park on that one. It is a fine piece of work. I was very impressed. Yeah,
and when he's sitting in his chair at the end and they actually kill him, it is like it tears your heart out. You know, it's a tearjerker, and tearjerkers often try too hard to get those tears to come out. And I don't know if this one tries too hard or what, but all I know is it's successful at it. And
it works.
I've seen that movie easily a dozen times. And
oh wow,
and it's emotional every single time.
Yes,
it's like something that I don't know if this is the right comparison, but say like Robert Zemeckis would try to do, you know, because Zemeckis often tries to tug at your heartstrings at times. And it's just a little too cheesy, and you're just like, you know, it's not working. But but The Green Mile, I guess, is a good one to see how that can be done right. You know, it's not all if something's a tearjerker, it doesn't automatically mean it's trash. Because I'll kind of say that. Like every time I see an advertisement for a movie and it's like based on the inspirational true story, I'm like, okay, I don't want to see that now. I don't want to be inspired, but this one works. Like it can be done. It can be done if you like can master just the tone of it. If you can just get people attached enough, because you even get attached to Mr. Jingles, the rat,
little mouse,
you even get attached to him. And that was so great to see him I don't know if I should say it, but to see him alive at the end, like Mr. Jingles is still around. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we should try to, as a rule, try to avoid
Yeah.
spoilers, or if we're going to, to just give a warning.
Okay.
But
That's a good idea.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it is a movie that is, and I say this not as a criticism or as a negative thing, but it's a very conventional, straightforward movie. It's done in a very classical sort of style. Just, tell the story, have a bit of comic relief here, have it go into more serious stuff here, establish things, set up, payoff, and when the drama comes, go for it and really try to get the emotion out of it. And when it works, it works. And here's an example of, that just straightforward classical kind of filmmaking done, I think, as well as it can be done. I thought The Green Mile was a great film.
Yeah, it really was. And like, even when the supernatural elements come along, like, it's as like awe-inspiring as you think it would be in real life, because the movie is so grounded in reality.
Yeah.
You see a lot of movies go for stuff like that. Like movies like some of the Harry Potter movies where there's these amazing things happening, but as a viewer, I'm kind of numb to it. But in this movie, there's a moment where you see him do his thing on Tom Hanks, and like when you see the flies coming out of his mouth, you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And again, it takes the time so that the characters can just have those minutes they need to be just like, what just happened? What are we dealing with?
Yeah.
What does this mean? Give it the weight that actually makes it feel like something significant and miraculous. Yeah. And I'm sure everybody's probably already seen it except for me. Well, I've seen it now, but to anyone who hasn't seen it, it's definitely worth a look. It really is a great film. I'm glad I finally watched it.
Yeah. It's a great companion to The Shawshank Redemption, because it's as uplifting, I think, as The Shawshank Redemption. So like, I think if you've seen one, you should definitely see the other. Like if you haven't seen either of them, double feature them, maybe in a day or two.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's uplifting. At least that wasn't kind of the reaction I had. But this one has more of a dark, tragic dimension to it. But it is another movie that, I guess it's just, it's cathartic, to cry at the end of the movie. I feel like that does, it is kind of a healthy release. It is like laughter when you can see a movie that really just takes you to places and really moves you at the end and lets you just kind of release your emotion through an act like that of just bawling your eyes out. Then you do kind of walk out of the theater like, man, I'm glad I saw that. That was a great film.
Yeah. I maybe cathartic is a better word, because like, I guess that's kind of what I meant when I said uplifting, because at the end you just feel like you've taken a complete journey and you've learned something. Maybe, I don't know. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to go into Hereditary now?
Yeah. Because what a crazy movie that was. Like, that was a crazy experience. I saw it, like I said, late at night. It was the perfect setting. It was pretty much an empty theater. There was like maybe two different couples that were there, probably on a date.
Great date movie.
Yeah, for sure. Which was great, actually, because one of the girls was pretty vocal during some of like the horror scenes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was one moment. You'll probably know what I'm referring to, where it's a dark room and you think you see something in the back, and there's a moment there, and it holds on a shot for a long time. And I remember thinking like, oh dude, this is super creepy, but I could hear her like maybe 5 or 6 rows above me just going like, because she thought like the jump was gonna come, and it just wouldn't, and it held on the shot for a long time. But yeah, what a great movie it was. It was you forget you're watching a horror movie a lot of the time until some horrific things happen.
Yes. And
it's very emotionally draining. It's an emotional ride. Because there's, oh man, we'll have to talk about it later so we can talk about some spoilers, but there was a big twist, like about maybe in the middle of the movie I didn't see coming, and that took the movie in this very different direction than I thought it was going to go, and it wore me out. And then I mean that in a good way. Like, it wore me out in a really good way. And then it's a long movie. It's like just under 2 hours, or maybe it's about 2 hours.
Yeah, I think it's just over 2 hours.
It's just over 2 hours. Okay. And it is slowly paced, but it's so worth it just to kind of set you in that time and place, to get you in these people's heads, even because I'm thinking that maybe none of it is real. Maybe it's all in their heads. It's one of those weird things. I don't know. I feel like I'm still trying to process it. And it's been maybe like 4 days since I've seen it.
Yeah, it's stuck with me too. Yeah, I spent just like several days afterwards just like continually thinking about that movie and thinking about certain things in it.
Yeah, even just what I've been trying to like puzzle over is just like, what could that opening shot mean, where it like starts in the window and then goes over to like the little house and goes into the house. And
there's a real I've heard it described as a dollhouse aesthetic to the movie, where the whole thing seems to be taking place in kind of like these artificial constructions, kind of like what the mom does. She creates, it's almost like she's creating dollhouses and dollhouses, you know?
Right. And there's a lot of like say there's an establishing shot that's supposed to bring you into another scene, or maybe like the next day, and it looks clearly fake. Sometimes it doesn't look that fake. Other times it's like, this is obviously a model. And it like goes back and forth between stuff like that. And so I'm just trying to think, like, what is that all trying to imply? Like, is this all just this artist's kind of like sick vision of her family, or is she having a mental breakdown and none of what you're seeing in the movie is literally what's happening to her family? Or is this like some post-traumatic stress thing, like where this did happen and she's like reliving it through her art somehow? I don't really know what is going on, but to me that makes it all the more fascinating, and what I think would make the movie very rewarding on multiple viewings, to try to like piece together your own interpretation of some of the imagery in the film.
It's kind of spoilers, but I wonder if it has something to do with kind of like the conspiratorial nature of the story, that it kind of turns out that events were being orchestrated by certain people. So I wonder if that has something to do with it, that they're kind of like almost like marionettes, you know, being kind of manipulated on a stage, that they're kind of playing things out that have been preordained almost by these sinister forces. I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Yeah, maybe, because it was all kind of set in motion by like the grandmother character.
Perhaps.
And even though like the daughter is the artist, and you think you're seeing these models of characters and houses, like the title's called Hereditary. So like, even though the mother started the ball in motion, that somehow went on to the daughter. See, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I saw in this movie. All I know is it freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah. And just families mess each other up generation after generation.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to give a big shout out. I don't know the actor's name, but the character who plays the son, like, he was a big standout in this movie, because he's not very prominently shown in the trailers. Like, you think that the whole movie is going to be like revolving around the daughter character. I mean, which it does, but I didn't think that the son was going to be as big a part of the movie as it was. And he has some moments where I see like a really great actor. There's a moment where he's like in a car, and he is like, it's like a horror moment, and he's like sitting in his car, like doing nothing, but by doing nothing, it conveys so much.
Yeah.
You know,
there's that moment where I won't give any spoilers, but there's a moment where he refuses basically to look behind him at what's in the back seat, because he's too afraid to.
That's basically it. So he just like keeps looking forward and just won't do anything, because he doesn't want to accept the reality of what happened. Oh man, and it was just brilliant, especially like when you think of other horror movies, because we talked last week about how visceral and in your face horror movies are, especially today, and to see it be so restrained in that moment, and in many other moments in this movie, was really different. Like, you know, because actors always have to play things up, whether it's horror or it's drama. Like, they always have to have their scene where they're like, no, but and they have to let the tears fall. But you rarely see actors like hold the tears back, you know, and by doing that, it's just so much more powerful. I remember having a conversation with Dana about Rocky Balboa, and he was talking about how great the scene was when Rocky's talking to Paulie, and he's talking about the stuff in the basement. You know what I'm talking about? And he's like, I got that stuff in the basement, and like, I miss Adrian, and this is why I'm going into the fight. But the whole time he's like breaking down, but you know, he's Rocky. He's got to hold his shit together. So he's like wiping his tears away because he doesn't want Paulie to see it. And Dana pointed out, like, that's something you don't see actors do. In those scenes in any other movie, they're going to let the tears fall. They're going to have their Oscar moment.
Yeah.
And by Stallone being conservative with his acting in that scene, made it that much more powerful. And I think the same thing kind of applies here to Hereditary in terms of horror.
Yeah. It's how much it doesn't show you. It's how much it doesn't tell you. It is, it's all the stuff it's holding back and keeping repressed that is the stuff that is really affecting you and digging at you in that movie. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really great. And I've seen a lot of stuff online where people think that, like, there should be a ton of Oscar nominations for this movie, like for the actors, because of how amazing they are. Yeah. Especially Toni Collette is the star of this one.
The lead actress, her. Yes.
And I think hell yeah. Like, I've seen her be really good in a lot of movies. But I don't know if I've seen her be like really great before. And I think she gives one of the best performances in horror history in this movie.
I agree with that. Yeah, she's really in top form in this movie. She's given an incredibly complex character and a really difficult role to play, and she really makes you believe it. It's incredible work.
And horror doesn't really get recognized at the Oscars ever.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah.
And I think this one should, because of how like deliberately paced the whole movie is, because you have this long running time and you have this like big revelation at the end that it has to reveal, but it can only reveal so much at certain times throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
And so like to write a script like that and have it just be so carefully crafted, and it's also very well directed. It's very well shot. Just have all these elements come together. Like, it's probably, I would almost bet it's not going to get like a Best Picture nomination, but I think that's a damn shame that it won't.
I agree. Yeah. The genres like this, I think the only genre that really fails to get more recognition than horror is probably sci-fi. Yeah. You know, you see great sci-fi movies come out every now and again, and they almost never really get much notice during award season. And horror, is the other big one. I guess maybe the one recent exception to that is probably Get Out, because of the social commentary that was so unique about that movie, and just the fact that it came out, you know, in this particular moment in history. It was one of those rare genre films that kind of connected in a really significant way. So Jordan Peele was kind of maybe the one time somebody like that made a movie like that was really able to break out and kind of gain the prestige those kinds of movies don't get. Hereditary doesn't quite have that same kind of political charge to it, so I don't think it'll get the same kind of recognition, but I totally agree with you that it deserves it. It's one of the best movies of the year, I have no doubt. Even though we're only about halfway through, I have a feeling this one is going to be on a lot of top 10 lists.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, it's not going to get the awards recognition that it should get.
Yeah, I mean, like Silence of the Lambs is the only horror movie.
Silence of the Lambs.
And the Exorcist was nominated, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it got a few noms at least.
Very, very few times in Oscar history horror has gotten its due.
Yeah.
And maybe this one will break through. Maybe it just depends on how hard they're going to campaign it when it comes Oscar season.
Yeah, I think the studio behind it, is it A24? Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. it seems like they're a pretty high profile like indie studio. So I don't know what their track record is for like going for awards at the end of the year, but if they decide to go for it, like I do hope they try to put some campaign backing behind Hereditary, because on the off chance they could at least, you know, get a nod for Toni Collette or something, like anything would be good. I hope Ari Aster, the writer director, gets some recognition too, but I have a feeling Toni Collette probably has the best chance for, you know, getting the one Oscar nod.
yeah, she deserves it for sure. And I mean, and also it'd be great if she won, but also, you know, we'll see what other performances come out of this year. So yeah, it was a really special movie, and I can see why you said, like, I would say it's as good as like Rosemary's Baby. Like it definitely is.
Yeah, it's the movie that does the work to really actually frighten you.
Yeah, to just kind of like it really digs into you, you know, like it doesn't just have things jump out from corners and just scream at you.
Yeah.
Because I mean when it comes to jump scares, there's a couple, but there's really almost none. There's almost no jump scares. So all the horror just comes from just like the realization of what's happening.
Yeah. The dark depths that are revealed, to the characters and the context of the events.
Yeah, there's some images in the movie that I would say are among the best I've ever seen in horror, and there's one specifically where like it's like a quick shot. Maybe it was a little long, but it's a shot of like pretty much into a dark room, and then there's like a doorway that's all black, but you can barely see someone standing there, and it's like, and you might know what I'm talking about, and it's this dude standing in the doorway totally naked, and he's like kind of like turned at an angle a little bit, and he's like smiling like like this, and you see his teeth and his eyes, and he just like holds on, he's like and that fucked my life up. Oh my god, it was so fucked up. Like, I mean, I felt it like in my arms. I was just like
what do you think of the discrepancy between like the critical reaction to this movie and the audience reaction? Because like it's getting really great reviews, but like I don't know what the IMDb score is right now, but like on Cinema Score, it's got like a D+.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's not.
And I've been talking to a lot of people, just like coworkers, and I've even gotten some comments on a few of my videos saying like, I really didn't like Hereditary. I did not think it was good. I thought it was so overhyped. Or I talked to other people saying like it was so boring. It wasn't scary at all. Like, what's the deal with that?
Yeah, I don't think it was boring, because like I said, there were long stretches of the movie where I forgot I was watching a horror movie because of how much it focuses on the drama of this family falling apart. So I mean, if you're gonna say like, oh, a lot of the time like I wasn't scared, it's like, yeah, that might be true, but it's still like an engaging movie though.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. Do you think it just comes down to like expectations where people are, if they're going into a horror movie, they do expect something where it's like, okay, so that means I've got to be jumping in my seat every 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah,
you think it's just simply a case of that?
I think that's a big part of it. What people expect and what they want from the movie. I mean, I don't really know. I actually went to this movie with a friend of mine, and she said that some of her friends saw it and they hated it because they thought it was boring and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So when her and I were headed to the theater, and we were talking about like movies like Rosemary's Baby, and I said like, oh, I've heard a lot about how Hereditary is a different kind of horror movie. You don't expect, you know, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre jumps and stuff like that. Like expect something like Rosemary's Baby. And she loved the movie. Like the whole the whole car ride home, like, you know, she was talking about how much it terrified her, how much it made her sad, like even all that stuff. So maybe expectations is a major part of why people disliked it.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling on it, is just that, yeah, people don't want spoilers, so they don't really want to read anything beforehand other than just the most basic surface kind of details or descriptions. And so, yeah, I think it really, what most people read is, they'll see a trailer, or they'll just see like Hereditary, scariest movie since The Exorcist, or it's so terrifying, or just it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
And then they go in, yeah, expecting a very specific kind of thing and not really digging any deeper to find out, like, you know, it's a drama too. It's a story about a family. It's all of these other things in addition to being a horror film. And yeah, I do think it does come down to, yeah, just people thinking horror should be one thing and being confronted with a creation that is something very much its own thing, you know?
Yeah, maybe if people just went into it thinking it's a drama, like don't even.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe
yeah.
tell them it's a horror movie, because like a lot of people don't just outright will not like horror movies. I understand that. Maybe, you know, tell them like, yeah, it's a horror movie, but like it's a drama. It's a fucking drama. Then that would be very different. Then they could accept just the bad things that happen, other than like rah shit like that.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is a really sad scene, and I am just supposed to feel sad. I'm just supposed to be empathizing with the characters right now and not being afraid.
Yeah, another horror movie I saw this year that was more along those lines of like, you know, in your face sort of scary, that was also great, was A Quiet Place. And that movie did extremely well.
Yes.
And there are a lot of moments in that movie that are kind of there to remind you this is a horror film. You know, those moments where like a character's like walking slowly into a room, and right before they do, hands come up behind them and grab them. And but it's just you. Okay, I'm safe still.
Yeah.
You know, there is a lot of shit like that. But I did love that movie. So
yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That can also be done really well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so people are just going to be expecting that sort of thing, and I think it's killing a lot of their experiences. And then also, but to be fair, I mean, I'm sure you can still criticize this movie other than unrealized expectations and like still not like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to meet more people that have seen it and hear what they have to say.
Yeah, have a few discussions. Yeah, definitely. I'll be curious to see in like 10 years time, once all the hype has kind of died down and maybe people go back to it or try it for the first time without that hype or without those expectations, to see what the reactions will be then and how people will be viewing it. Yeah, much further along in the future.
Yeah,
I think it's a movie that will endure.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I want to get my my sister to watch it, because I had her sit down and watch The Babadook with me.
Ooh.
And yeah, and I remember the first maybe half hour of that movie, she was uninterested and was like, why are you having me watch this? Why is this so praised? But I made her endure. And her and I have actually watched that movie together like 3 times. So she really likes that movie now.
Oh.
So
first time it was kind of like, what is this?
Yeah, because again, you know, you're like, oh, it's a scary movie. Okay, let's watch it. And you think it's going to be a lot of jump scares and stuff. And it was so much more than that. So I'd love to see what she would think of it, because now she's just had a bit more experience with more patient horror films.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think audiences are too stupid to enjoy a movie like Hereditary.
Yeah.
They just don't know really what they're going into because of the way it's marketed or something like that, or stuff they read on the internet.
Yeah, or just what other movies have conditioned them to.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because like the way horror has changed over the decades, like when you watch an 80s horror movie, like it feels very 80s, and when you watch a 90s movie, it feels very 90s, because most of those movies are kind of products of that time.
Yeah.
So when you watch a horror movie that's brand new, you expect it to be a certain way.
Yeah, play to the trends of the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Hereditary is just its own bizarre little thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. So.
But I do think it's great, and yeah, it's still one I strongly recommend, and I'm guessing it gets a hearty recommendation from you as well.
Yeah, it gets a lot of thumbs up. I'm making new thumbs. I loved it. I really did. it's probably been my favorite movie I've seen out of this year. Like one of the
nice.
One of the 3 movies I've seen out of this year. Is probably
Well, that's still something.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, very cool. I'm glad to hear that you liked it. So I guess in this final part of the show, what are your plans for what to watch next?
Well, I need to start chipping away at my Netflix queue.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I really do. Like every time I go through it, I see a bunch of stuff that I'm like, oh, I really want to watch that. And then I don't know. I rarely get around to it. Again, really nothing specific. I just hope to be able to have some time so I can watch just anything.
Just see how the mood strikes you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, not a lot from me to say, but
okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, we're kind of hitting. I guess it's a summer right now, so it's a lot of summer blockbusters. Not a lot of stuff right now that I'm terribly interested in. I think Skyscraper just opened.
Oh shit! I forgot to mention. Okay, the only thing better than Hereditary when I went to the movie was a trailer that played before Hereditary that got me really excited. Have you seen? I think the movie is called The Meg. Have you seen the trailer for that?
Oh yes,
dude, that movie looks awesome. I can't wait.
God,
for that
no,
shit. No, yes. A big budget shark movie with big stars. Like that never happens, and this looks insane. Like when that trailer played, like I was like, dude, I gotta see that shit. I have to. Yeah, because like the first part you see is that little girl and she's walking through that like big glass tube, and then through the murkiness of the water, the shark shows up and it's giant, just goes, and then you have like Jason Statham that's like, I'm Jeff Chelios, and then like he's like flying through a thing. And he's fighting a shark. That's so cool. Yeah. I'm gonna be. I don't know if I'll see that in theaters. I probably won't. But that's gonna be one that like I can't wait to get all of our friends together and watch.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh boy!
Yeah, that trailer alone was worth the ticket price of Hereditary.
I did. I was talking to Jace, who's the guy I've done a couple streams with lately. He's a filmmaker around here. And he did say he was excited for that one as well. Just because he loves shark movies.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love a good shark movie too. Most of them are bad. Like I don't like to watch the Sharknado stuff. Because those movies, like all those movies are actually really boring. like there's not a lot of crazy shit that happens. It's mostly just people like driving around and talking and they're shot on these really bad cameras and it looks like garbage, and it's one of those movies where you watch it you lose your appetite. But then but I could go back to something like Deep Blue Sea and have a great time with it.
Okay, yeah, I can see Deep Blue Sea. Yeah. All right. Maybe I get it now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not just watching like, two-headed shark attack like all the time. I'm not watching stuff like that. But if it's like, you give it a big budget and okay, I'll see what it. I'll check it out.
Okay, so The Meg is on your watch list at some point.
Yes.
I can't think of. I have a coworker. He's actually the manager of the coffee shop where I work. So I guess he's my boss. He's a big fan of like the Marvel stuff. So, and I've been kind of curious, to try to jump back into that stuff a little bit. I'm not really interested in doing it on my own, but if I got somebody who's like, oh, I'm so excited, for this coming up, it's like, I'll go see that with you. Why not? It might be fun. Yeah. He's the guy I saw like Solo with, which I probably wouldn't have seen on my own, but I'm glad I saw it. I enjoyed Solo. So next week we are going to see Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Ooh, have you seen the first Ant-Man?
I think I saw most of it a while back. Okay. I don't really remember it, but I'm kind of okay with that. I've missed a huge chunk of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm kind of curious, to just jump right back in and see if I can reacclimatize myself, if it's going to be like there's going to be so much that I've missed that like I won't know like, well, who's that and who's this and what's going on here, and they're talking about this thing, but I have no idea what that means. Or if it is, you know, just going to be just a fun movie on its own that is also part of this shared universe. So I'm curious. I'm going in with curiosity.
I'm sure it'll be a little bit of both of that. Like there'll probably be a lot of stuff they're referencing that you won't understand, but you'll be like, yeah, whatever. I'll still just enjoy it for what it is. And
but I am curious. I'm hoping that I do enjoy it. I'm going to go into it without bias, just hoping to have a good time.
Yeah, the only like Marvel movie I would really want to see that I haven't yet is maybe Black Panther.
Black Panther. I am curious to see that one as well.
I can't think of anything else like I'd want to see, but I mean, they're usually like, you know, you throw them on, you're at least going to have a good time. So
a lot of money up there on screen, which I got to admit, it does impress me seeing like what the technology is capable of now. Like just seeing like Solo, for instance, and just like what's up there on screen. It's like, wow, movie technology has gotten good.
Oh yeah.
Like it's really gotten to the point, I think I mentioned this last time, but it's really gotten to the point where I can't tell like what's actually there and what's been added later. It's gotten so seamless.
Yes, it's so advanced, and it's also they're just so good at like just knowing how to implement it into their movies now.
Yeah, and mixing the physical effects with the digital effects.
Yeah, back in the 90s, it was always like a toss up over whether it would be good or bad, because like you'd have like the same amount of money being poured into a movie, yet one would look excellent and one would look like garbage. You know, Jurassic Park looked excellent. It still does. Independence Day looks like garbage.
I disagree.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's another conversation. But I mean, there just seemed like there was a lot of movies where like they just really didn't know how to use it, you know? But then some directors would know what they're doing, or they'd get it right for some reason. But now it's pretty much consistent. Like they can achieve what it is they're going for.
Time. I think so. Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of the big effects movies of the last couple of years, but yeah, just going into like Solo or even seeing Incredibles 2, like just how polished the Pixar films are getting, and just how they're able to create these whole worlds on screen and make them seem so tangible, like these real places that are so filled with detail and that feel so alive. And just imagining all the work, you know, and all the time and all the effort that has to go into that. It's just like, it's really mind-boggling seeing what the filmmaking technology of today is capable of, you know, on that scale. It really does. It wows me. It fills me with a sense of awe. So that's kind of fun to have. You know, I love the little movies that are just about people and stories, you know, and ideas. But I got to admit, there is that side of me that also just loves going to see a big spectacle and just being blown away by incredible, impossible imagery. You know,
are you going to go see Skyscraper?
I don't think so. I like The Rock, but not that much. Yeah, that does not look like a very good movie to me.
Yeah, I remember thinking like, oh, that's going to be lame. But then I saw Nev Campbell's in it. I'm like, oh shit, I haven't seen her in a movie in like 10 years.
Yeah.
All right, I'd see it just for her. But and The Rock, I like The Rock too.
Yeah. Other than Ant-Man, I don't know if I'm gonna see anything else. I might go try and see Isle of Dogs again if it's still playing. Give it another shot. Maybe third time will be the charm. And then other than that, it's probably just going to be waiting for the next thing to come along that looks interesting to me. I started on Blu-ray because of course it is the first month of the year for the Criterion 50% off sale at Barnes and Noble.
Oh shit. Yeah. Did you get anything?
I've gotten several so far.
Oh yeah. Anything good, or else just something more?
Let me see. I got let's see, a couple that I haven't opened yet. Got some Mike Lee. I got Life is Sweet.
Oh, I love that movie. That's a great movie.
I haven't seen this yet.
Yep. I got that like the day it came out. I love Mike Lee. He's one of my favorite filmmakers.
Yeah, that's one of his earlier ones that I haven't checked out yet. I got the complete Lady Snowblood. I'm a Yeah, I'm a big fan of Japanese movies, and I've never seen these ones.
I've not seen those either.
Oh, I'll show one more.
All right.
Got Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters.
I want to see that one really bad.
I saw this one ages ago. I'm very excited to see it on Blu-ray, rewatch it.
Yeah. Didn't you like not care for that one, or?
No, I liked it. I thought it was good.
Okay. I thought I was talking to someone that was like, it's okay. And I remember finding it weird because it was on Ebert's Great Movies list. And
that's right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was someone else, but yeah, I haven't been able to pick anything up. And there's a Barnes and Noble not too far away from me.
Oh,
yeah,
the temptation.
I know, it's seriously so strong. I'm trying to save money. I really want to get a Nintendo Switch, just because I'm turning into a soy boy, so I really want to get one of those. But I'm just like, but these are 50% off. I guess I can get one, but I know if I get one, I'm probably going to get two. And I know if I get two, I'm probably going to get three. Yeah. And it's, it would be great, but I shouldn't, but I should.
We'll see what you end up doing. But I'm trying to go through just a lot of the stuff I have on here that I haven't watched yet. So I'll probably finish this one today and we can talk about it next week. But I started watching Fellini Satyricon.
Oh yeah, I started that one a long time ago.
Oh really?
Yeah. I only got a little bit into it, and I fell asleep, and I just never returned to it because I was on a Fellini kick for a little while. Like I remember I watched Nights of Cabiria, and I watched Amarcord, and there was one about a bunch of young men. I can't even remember the title of it.
Is that Eva Toloni?
Yes, that one. Yes. And I watched that, and then so I was like, "Oh, cool, Satyricon's next," and then it wasn't.
It didn't do it for you.
Yeah, I don't remember anything from it. I remember it was one of those things I just passed out and just never returned to it. So I wouldn't say like I wasn't enjoying it. I didn't get far enough to tell. But
I'm about half hour into it right now, and it's insane.
Yeah.
It's totally Fellini made some weird movies. Like 8.5 is a pretty strange movie. Like Juliet of the Spirits is a very strange movie. This one takes the cake. This has got to be the most, even just 30 minutes in, it's got to be one of the most bizarre movies I've ever seen, and certainly the most outlandish film Fellini ever made. And I'm very interested to watch the rest of it and see how I feel about it, because there's really not much of a plot to it. It's just kind of a succession of just the most incredible, insane imagery you've ever seen, just kind of taking you through the decadence of ancient Rome. And there's sort of a protagonist, but he kind of gets lost just in the sea of characters, and set design and cinematography. It's wild. It's the kind of movie that just simply does not get made anymore. That is just, an artist kind of expressing the inner contents of their imagination in just a completely unfiltered way. And not really, I don't think, considering so much like, is an audience going to be able to follow this? Is this palatable? They're just kind of splashing their imagination up there. It's totally raw and unfiltered and wild and incredibly just eye-poppingly just dense and there was another word I thought of for it, but just every shot, every image is so packed with detail and so packed with strangeness and originality. In the set design and the makeup, it's incredible. I've really never seen anything like it, so I'm enjoying it quite a bit so far.
Yeah, that's kind of how. I guess I haven't totally felt that way about like the films of his that I have seen, but original's a great word for Fellini.
Yes,
8.5. There's tons of images in 8.5 that are very dreamlike and and crazy. And that famous one where the person's like floating up in the air and like you just see like their POV and their foot, like that gave me like vertigo looking at that. So those movies are really, really just original. Like I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, they're unlike anything. He was a unique voice in cinema and still is, and no one's been able to do anything like it. Like I mean, Woody Allen tried to copy him in Stardust Memories and did actually a pretty good job.
Actually,
but still, like I mean, maybe it's a credit to him because he still like made it his own, but it wasn't Fellini
Yeah.
still. Like it was still very much Woody Allen.
Yeah, it's interesting because like you see like the cliches of the time, like the dialogue is synced very poorly because Fellini would shoot, you know, MOS without sound, like a lot of Italian directors of that time. But there was still something so specific and indelible about the way he made movies and the way he conducted images and just the way he was able to just, you know, make his movies, make those, the things you saw just leap off the screen at you and just breathe with a certain kind of vibrancy and specificity. There's never been anyone else like him. And a movie like Fellini's Satyricon is him just at his most unhinged, and it's sort of exhilarating. It really is. I can't think of any other filmmaker like today that's doing anything that's even comparable to the stuff Fellini did at that time.
Yeah. Dude's awesome.
So yeah, I'm gonna watch that. Probably see Ant-Man by the time next time we sit down, and yeah, we'll see what else we have to talk about. So
yeah, I guess until then, until I see you next Wednesday.
yes. Until then, I've been Disregarding Henry.
I've been Bretflix Mazurski.
Yes, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe to Bretflix over on his channel. There should be a link in the description. And yeah, hopefully you all had a good time. And until I'm trying to think of a good sign off for this, but just basically the point is see you next Wednesday.
Yeah, that's the point. I never know of good sign offs when I do my videos. I basically just kind of want to drop out of frame and then just cut to black.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I had a great time too. I mean, we always do. So
yes,
for sure. So I will see you next Wednesday. I'll see our audience next Wednesday, and love you, dog.
Love you too.